Fox Business will host the fourth Republican debate tonight in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And this time, only 8 candidates will participate in the primetime show. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie and former Governor of Arkansas Mike Huckabee have been relegated to the kids' table, leaving behind Donald Trump, Ben Carson, Marco Rubio, Jeb Bush, Ted Cruz, Carly Fiorina, John Kasich, and Rand Paul. So what can we expect? Well, joining us now are Benjamin Shapiro, editor-in-chief of the Daily Wire, Demetrius Minor, the author of Preservation and Purpose, The Making of a Young Millennial, and Capri Cafaro, the state senator from Ohio. So I want to thank you all for joining us today. And,
Thank you.
First things first, what we have to acknowledge here is that it is a different network that is hosting the debate this evening, which means there will be different moderators. And so far, Fox Business seems to be saying that they want to be the anti-CNBC. Moderator Neil Cavuto told Politico, quote, "My goal is to make myself invisible, that I'm not the issue, that we're not the issue. The answers to what we're raising become the issue." And Maria Bartiromo echoed that thought, saying, "After that CNBC debate, I realized I knew my marching orders. It was clearer than ever what my marching orders are, and that is to help the viewer, help the voter better understand what each candidate's plan is. Is it a realistic plan? Can it work? And how is it different from the next guy or gal? And that's what I plan to focus on." Ben, do you think, A, that they can deliver? And what is it exactly that they need to do differently to make it not like the CNBC debate?
Well, I mean, the first thing they need to do differently from the CNBC debate is not be partisan hacks. But, I mean, aside from that, it would be good if they just ask straight questions about economic plans as opposed to gotcha questions about why are you even on the stage, or why is your economic plan economically illiterate, or all the various sort of phraseologies that John Harwood and the various other Betsy Quick and the rest of the folks at the CNBC debate were doing. I think that's their goal. I think that what we're seeing right now is that the candidates in the RNC have basically said the first few debates have not served the purposes of the Republican Party. They've served the purposes of the networks. The networks made lots and lots of money with big ratings over these debates, but the party has basically looked, like a clown car. And one of the reasons it's looked like a clown car is because when the people driving the car insist that everybody in the back dress up like a clown, there's not much that anybody can do about it.
Well, Neil Cavuto did have a warning, however, for the candidates. He told the Washington Post, quote, "I understand candidates getting annoyed, but they better be careful about looking like whiners and babies."
That's right.
Senator Cafaro, what do you say to that? Because there is a line to be drawn between asking bad questions, but also the candidates having to be able to deal with answering tough questions.
That's right. I mean, and this debate is incredibly important because obviously it is supposed to be focused on the economy being always the leading issue that the American people and the American voters want to hear about, whether you're Democrats or Republicans. But we have to acknowledge these people want to be the commander-in-chief. They want to have the top job in the most powerful country in the world. And if you can't deal with some moderators, political hacks or not, you're not going to be able to deal with Putin. You're not going to be able to deal with ISIS. You're not going to be able to deal with, the real job of being president of the United States. So I think Cavuto is right on. And I will say this, I'm a Democrat, but I have a lot of faith in Fox Business and Maria Bartiromo and Cavuto in particular. They are pros. They came from MSNBC. They know their stuff, and I think they're going to keep it on task, even if there are clowns in the car.
Yeah, they came from CNBC, is what they came from, and then hence,
I'm sorry, I meant to say CNBC.
But I knew that's what you were saying. Hence how interesting it is to see them now kind of criticizing their former colleagues. But the other thing aside from obviously the moderators being able to control the flow of the debate and the types of issues that are being brought up, is the moderators and the networks themselves. To be fair, they are very much playing kingmaker here as to which candidates get how much airtime. And so I just want to go through the rules that Fox made for tonight's debate. To qualify for prime time, a candidate had to score 2.5% or higher at an average of the 4 most recent national polls, and candidates scoring under that had to receive at least 1% support in at least one of the 4 most recent national polls to qualify for the 7 p.m. debate. And so the 4 polls that were used were conducted by Fox News, Investors Business Daily, Quinnipiac, and the Wall Street Journal and NBC. Demetrius, do you think that this system is fair? Especially if they're using their own polling.
Well, absolutely. And I want to echo what New Jersey Governor Chris Christie said, too, about when he found out that he was demoted to the quote-unquote kiddie table. He says, well, I'm not going to whine about it. I'm not going to complain about it. Of course, it's debatable to which polls are used, and it's questionable on some polls, the validity of it. But at the end of the day, these people are trying to occupy the highest office in the land. And they have to show that they can't be complainers, they can't be whiners, they have to go with the flow. They have to accept the narrative of the debate. They can also stand firm on their policy positions. They can also stand firm on what they believe in. But they're going to have to be able to handle the media. They have to be able to handle the outline and the criteria for this debate, because it shows character. It shows what they're made of when things may not go their way. So it's very important for them to handle that with integrity and with class.
Can I jump in here just real quick on this issue of polls?
Sure.
Because while I do think that it's fair as far as, if you can't hack 1% in a poll, I mean, you need to have some, serious come to Jesus discussions on whether or not you should be running and continue to run for president of the United States. That being said, I think that the real question is not necessarily, whether or not whose polls they're using, but national polls versus primary state polls. And whether or not, because that's been something that has been talked about in some of the previous debates, is should we be focusing on the performance specifically in early primary states versus these average of national polls, which are not necessarily reflective or indicative of, the success that is needed in order to go on to secure the nomination.
Well, let's talk a little bit about who really needs to perform and show up tonight. If you look at recent polling, Ben Carson is at the top of the pack. And here we have one, too, that just looks at favorability ratings among Americans. And, and Ben Carson is far and away has the highest percentage there with Marco Rubio just a little bit behind him, too. And, of course, Trump just second behind him as well. So, Ben, what does Ben Carson need to do tonight in order to have this debate go his way? Because he has been having a difficult time, and that there's been a lot of critique coming at him about exaggerations, lies about his past and what he's written in his book. And at the same time, just if you are the front runner, then everyone's going to be looking at you.
I sort of disagree. I don't think that Carson's been having a difficult time at all, in the sense that he's doing better in the polls. His favorability is going up among Republicans, specifically because he's attacking the media. I don't buy the narrative that's put out by the left that if you attack the media, this is somehow whining. Somehow President Obama has gotten away with attacking Fox News incessantly for the last several years, and he's doing fine. I mean, this idea that the media are not Republicans' enemies when it comes to CNBC or Huffington Post is a joke. Of course, these are partisan outlets, and of course, they have an agenda.
Yeah, and CNBC is a very non-left outlet. That certainly is something.
And during that debate, it certainly was not a non-left outlet. And Huffington Post clearly is a left outlet, and it's perfectly within bounds for candidates to talk about that. And I think it's useful for candidates to talk about that, because the fact is that moderators do have an agenda when they come to the debate table. So that's an important thing for people to know when they hear the questions. When it comes to what Carson has to do tonight, the difficulty for Carson is going to be that he actually can't attack the moderators. This is a tried and true Republican tactic over the last few years, has been going after moderators who ask bad questions. If the questions tonight are solid and down the heart of the plate in terms of basic questions about economic policy, that's actually where Carson has flubbed a bit. If you watch him in the previous debates, anytime he gets to the specifics of his policies, that's where he starts to have trouble. When he can talk about kind of general tactics of the media in their attempt to slander him, then he's on really solid footing. I mean, there's no question that last week he's risen in Republican estimation, specifically because of all the failed attacks on him and the supposed exaggerations and lies that nobody on the left has been able to back up.
Well, his own campaign admitted that they lied about the issue of West Point, right? That what was written in his biography. Yeah, his own campaign said that he never actually applied for a scholarship. And in order, listen to me, please. His own campaign admitted that they never applied for a scholarship, or that Ben Carson never applied for a scholarship.
And Politico had to revise both its headline and its lead and issue an editor's note. See, this is the sort of thing where Ben Carson is insolid. I hope that you and the media continue to do this. The more you do this, the more you discredit yourselves, and the more people in the Republican field get to attack the media, which, frankly, I enjoy much more.
I'm a member of the media, a member of which you are, Ben. Let's also just point out you are also a member of the so-called media here, but
not the mainstream media. I'm an opinion journalist on the right. I'm very clear about my agenda. You aren't.
I'm very clear about my agenda. I have absolutely nothing to hide.
Can I say something?
All right, yeah, go ahead. But let's talk about Ben Carson, right? I mean, this is not about us right now, but this is about the candidates that want to be the president of the United States. One of the things that Ben Carson has not done in the other debates that we've seen so far is really attack the other candidates on the stage, right? He hasn't gone on the attack. He hasn't gone on the offensive against Donald Trump. So, Demetrius, will that change? Will his kind of calm and cool demeanor be different this time around?
I don't think he needs to attack his other candidates. Ben Carson's going to be riding pretty high. He's raised last week alone $3.5 million with 80,000, close to 80,000 new donors. So obviously, the media hit job on him has benefited him in his campaign.
Yep, that's right.
So he's going to be riding high. He does not need to attack other candidates because right now, Ben Carson is also not only the outsider, but he's the anti-Donald Trump. Once he starts attacking his candidates, attacking his fellow candidates, he's going to come across as being Donald Trump and is going to turn a lot of people away. I echo Ben. He needs to focus on economic policies, specifically proposals. He needs to stick to talking about jobs in the economy and how we can make that work for all Americans. And that's how he's going to benefit.
Well, and if I may, I mean, I think that we keep talking about, specifics and the fact that Dr. Carson doesn't have specifics. And that's where, some of the quote unquote outsider candidates, are soft. I believe that this format in particular, because I think that Bartiromo and Cavuto, as I said before, know their stuff. And I think that it's going to stay on the straight and narrow regarding, specific economic and foreign policy, kind of dialogue, that this is going to be the night for the quote unquote establishment candidates to shine, like my governor, John Kasich, whom can actually talk about what they've done for the economy. And I think that, we've all talked about, can Jeb really fix it? His new moniker, Jeb can fix it. This is his opportunity, and he desperately needs an opportunity to get out there and showcase his record as the governor of Florida. So, if this format in particular, I think will be a make or break opportunity for establishment candidates to show their strength, their intellect, and their track record, and juxtapose that to those that have not necessarily had that same kind of trajectory in their career.
Well, Senator Kapar, what do you think that Senator Marco Rubio has to do tonight, too? Because he performed well in the last debate, and that has been reflected in the polling that's been out there. But then his campaign also, due to questions about personal finances, using the card for his personal finances, they have put those numbers out there. They've tried to be transparent about it, but does that make the issue go away?
When you are gaining momentum, no different than Dr. Carson or Mr. Trump, Senator Rubio, obviously in the last two debates in particular, have had such strong performances that everybody is turning the guns on Senator Rubio. So, the more momentum he builds, it might not be this particular issue with the Republican Party annex, I believe it was, in Florida, being utilized and reimbursed, but it's going to be something else. And anybody who's rising is going to get that level of scrutiny. I believe Senator Rubio, he's probably the most skilled and talented, orator on there. I kind of do subscribe to the fact that he is a little bit of the Republican Barack Obama in that regard, first term senator, and, sort of presents himself incredibly well. I think the guns are going to be turned on him by all the rest of the folks on that stage potentially. And if he can continue to deflect and reshape the message just like he did against Jeb Bush in the last debate, I think he's going to be just fine. I think the people to watch are to see what happens to the lower tier guys, the bottom four on this. I think the top four are going to continue to hang steady unless there's something totally disastrous that happens. And the bottom four, they're either going to drop down or they're going to surge.
Well, it's interesting, too, because Marco Rubio and Jeb Bush, of course, now there is this kind of rivalry going on between the two of them. And so Senator Rubio decided to remind people of what Governor Bush used to say about him before this rivalry came into existence. Take a look.
What Marco has, I think, is something that the Republican Party needs to have, which is a hopeful, optimistic message based on our principles. I'm a huge Marco fan. He's probably the most articulate conservative on the scene today, and the fortitude to be a good president.
So proud of his high voltage energy. I'm so proud of his enthusiasm. I'm so proud of his eloquence.
I'm a huge Marco fan.
I'm Marco Rubio, and I approved of this message.
Ben, how awkward is the whole Jeb versus Rubio relationship at this point? Is it benefiting either one of them, or is it benefiting the Bush campaign at all to continue to hit Rubio?
Nothing benefits the Bush campaign at this point. He's a dead man walking. He may not know it, but awkward exclamation point is a better motto for his campaign at this point than Jem exclamation point, because everything that he does is just wildly awkward, from labeling Supergirl hot to talking about whether he would kill baby Hitler. There's just nothing that he can do that is in any way helping him here. And you're not going to see any recovery here. Honestly, I'd be very shocked if there's any major change in the polling after this debate. I just don't see any room for anybody to really go up, or room for anybody except for maybe Dr. Carson to drop significantly if Carson makes a boo-boo because he's not really fluent on his own policies. I think that everybody else on the stage basically knows what they're doing. We know what they can do. Trump is Trump, and his supporters love him, and his detractors hate him. And no matter what he does, Donald Trump will be considered a winner by his people who love him, and he'll be considered a loser and a huge loser by the people who despise him. So
well,
I
don't
really
forget,
don't think he's going to make a break.
The economy could be, he's obviously a successful businessman, and so this could be, an even stronger performance for Mr. Trump, no matter what.
Well, but he's not going to get as much of an opportunity to throw some gut punches, because the one thing that Trump has really done so well in the previous debates is anytime somebody slaps at Trump is, I've termed him the fat lion. You poke him too much and he tries to eat your face, and that's kind of what Donald Trump waits for in these debates. He waits for somebody, a moderator, another candidate to attack him, and then all of a sudden he leaps across the podium for the kill. I don't think you're going to see that same sort of thing. The debates where Trump has done the worst are the ones where he looks the most sober. The ones where he's not Trump are the ones where he hasn't benefited very much, because if he has to talk policy proposals and he's talking Atlantic City, I think we've all heard his talking points at this point.
Yeah, well, he does sometimes show that he has a very thin skin, but where Trump differs with some of his Republican colleagues, though, is exactly in his tax plan, right, or what he has to say about raising taxes on the wealthy. And so I just wonder, too, Senator, do you think that certain issues like the fast food strikes that are going on today, did you think that anything like that is going to make it? Yeah, the fight for 15, fighting for a minimum wage of $15. Do you think that is going to make it into this kind of a debate?
It may. The issue of increasing the minimum wage has made cameo appearances in previous debates. There are, folks that are competing for the Republican nomination that have spoken to this issue and have actually been for increasing the minimum wage. So, seeing the fact that the Fight for 15 folks are outside the Milwaukee theater, where we are here, I'm actually in Milwaukee right now. I would surmise that at least the discussion around whether or not it is valid to increase the minimum wage, and if so, how, and if so, by how much, is certainly a likely contender for a question this evening.
By the way, I forgot I did have some Trump tweets here. This one's from Donald Trump saying Marco Rubio is totally weak on illegal immigration and in favor of easy amnesty. A lightweight choker, bad for the USA. That's his new line, or his new dig. And he also said, if I become president, we're all going to be saying, quote, Merry Christmas again. Demetrius, I want to bring up Carly Fiorina, because she has performed very strongly in other debates, and that's what originally got her onto that big stage from the smaller stage, or I guess the first stage, since it was the same stage. But I feel like her argument very much is always the same thing. And in her closing remarks at the last debate, she basically just said, I will be the anti-Hillary Clinton. Is that enough? What else does she have to prove?
Well, I like the message of being the anti-Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton is obviously, unless something significant changes, which I don't see, will be the Democrat nominee for president. So she has to contrast herself from Hillary Clinton, which, by the way, very.
So does everybody else.
Yeah, it just seems like a very limited argument, saying I'm the only woman on the stage, so I will be the anti-Hillary Clinton.
Well, she has talked about the economy. She's talked about zero-based budgeting. She's talked about her tenure at HP in the private sector and how she will bring that up front if she's elected as president of the United States, as far as the economy is concerned. Carly does well in the debates. She's consistent, she's firm, she's direct, but like all the rest of them, she has to expound more on her proposals and her policy ideas for the United States. And by the way, shame on the Hillary Clinton for not speaking up when a male person in the audience today talked about strangling Carly Fiorina. Hillary Clinton just laughed it off and said, I won't hang around you. And that's another thing as far as contrasting how the media covers the left when it comes to things like that. Because if that was on the GOP side, just like we've heard about the ridiculous attacks on Ben Carson, we'd be hearing about it 24/7.
I don't know if that's true.
Yeah.
Oh, it's totally true. You did hear about it 24/7 when Donald Trump refused to say anything about Barack Obama being a Muslim. You remember this? I mean, this actually happened at a Trump rally, and Trump didn't say anything about it, and it turned into the news cycle for a full week. Right? Hillary Clinton laughed when somebody says that.
There's still time. I mean, right now, the news cycle is being dominated by this evening's debate. Let's see what happens tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if it doesn't
I'm
come
sure
up
Fox News will make it one of its lead headlines, for the next couple of days. Or
and I'm
as
sure
much out of
Huffington
the
Post
stories
will.
they can.
Well, and Carly may just bring it up tonight, too.
Well, what about, Ben, what about Rand Paul? What about Ted Cruz? We haven't talked about either of them yet. Rand Paul really just kind of seems to be falling to the wayside here. All throughout this, kind of election cycle. And Ted Cruz is still managing, to somehow get a lot of attention. What is it that he has to offer that really differentiates himself from the other candidates on that stage?
Well, Cruz has the most consistently conservative platform in the field. I mean, he's somebody who's been extremely ideologically consistent when he's in the Senate, and he can stand on that. I think that you'll hear him talk a lot about Obamacare tonight, for example, because of obviously his attempt to defund Obamacare in the United States Senate. I think that Cruz, like Rubio, basically is going to seek to maintain in this particular debate. Rand Paul is the one who needs to make a move. If he wants to be known as anything in this field other than the drones and pot candidate, eventually he's going to have to do something. And if you're Rand Paul, then the place where you can really make a dent could be in a debate like this, where you take a very hard libertarian stance on what government should and should not do, and you contrast it with some of the more big government candidates on the stage, like John Kasich, for example. I think that Rand's campaign is flagging. I think that his campaign will probably be one of the first to end because he's going to be running a competitive Senate race. So if he's got to make hay while the sun shines, and the sun ain't shining for long here.
Well, I just got to say, John Kasich is not a big government guy. I mean, Medicaid expansion, we can have that discussion all day long, but here's someone who took a failing Department of Development, created a nonprofit corporation. He's reduced taxes year on year. I mean, he has
He's expanded school choice in the state of Ohio.
It's significantly expanded school choice in the state of Ohio. I mean, so to label him a big government guy, I think, and I have worked
compared
with
to the other
Governor Kasich
Republicans,
for
there's
5
no
years.
question he's bigger government than the other Republicans, is there? I mean,
Chris
is there any
Christie?
question?
Chris
Compared
Christie?
to the other. Oh, no.
I mean,
Christie is also a bigger government Republican, and he's not on the main stage. On the main stage right now, tonight, John Kasich is the biggest government Republican on that stage.
Well, I would actually look at
Maybe Trump.
Even Jeb Bush's record. I mean, when you are forced to govern, you have to make difficult decisions.
But you're not really forced to tell people that in order to get into heaven, you have to spend government money, which is what John Kasich said.
John Kasich said that that he wanted to bring Ohio's tax dollars back to reinvest into the healthcare system to help those that are the working poor. There's a significant difference. It isn't government money. It was the money of the people of Ohio that got returned.
I'm specifically talking about an answer that he gave during a meet.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I'm sure you do.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up there. But, of course, we all will be looking forward to what happens this evening and be watching those debates. And also, just to clarify what I was saying earlier about Ben Carson, too, to go back to this piece, his campaign conceded that the story was that he never applied, as I said. Absolutely no bias there.
He never claimed that he applied. He admitted fabricating the application.
All right.